evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and podcast. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. In accordance with our group conscience on October 3rd, 2023, we will also be posting our podcast on YouTube. We feel this is an effective way to carry our message to those seeking recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. In tonight's recap, we'll start on page 19, where none of us makes, and end on page 22. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums. And our study portion will start on page 22. This is by no means, and end on page 25. So many want to stop, but cannot.
And announcements. Hi family, my name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. And Trish, one thing that we need to fix in that announcement about the YouTube channel is it's still recorded in audio only, and we need to put that in the script. So for home group members, an email has been sent out with a survey that has come from our incoming delegate, some questions about literature and so on. We want everyone to take the survey. It will be returned to our delegate. But what we'd like to do, probably within the next couple of weeks, I don't think Trish set a date for it yet, but we'd like to take and get together as a group and talk about what the questions of the survey mean, because it has to do with our historical literature, so that we all have a full understanding of what it is that they're wanting to change before anybody answers the survey, so that there's no trick questions in there, and that we don't accidentally end up doing away with some important historical literature or something like that. Then we have a upcoming group conscience coming into January as we go into our fourth quarter assembly. And if you're not a member of this as a home group, but you would like it to be our home group, Trish just put part of the information in the chat. But if you'd like to become part of this home group, by all means, please just let us know. We'll add you. Yes, Molly?
In terms of the meeting, are we going to have a discussion about the survey at our group conscience?
The delegate could use the information before we go into first quarter, and we always have the group conscience a week before assembly. I'd like to try and do it before then, so that we can try and have accurate information to take to him.
So next week?
Yeah.
We're going to have a quick group conscience just on that survey, those questions, on January 1st at 6:45 Eastern Time before the fourth step workshop. And then our regular quarterly group conscience will still be January 15th for any other group business that we need to do.
Just so we're all so that we have a full understanding, because if I have to ask more questions, I certainly will. Thank you. Okay, and good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie, a very grateful recovered alcoholic, and welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of silent meditation, followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as to not distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And a friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away, and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And let's bring the monks in. Since we use the monks, it's not exactly a silent meditation, but hey, enjoy your time with God and do with it what you will. And if you'd like to join us in our family's Foglight Prayer, it should be on your screen in front of you. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report.
Thank you, Jane. Hi, everybody. My name is Molly, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I have asked, where'd he go? Larry? There he is. I have asked Larry to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Larry.
Just a second, I'm working on it. There we go. You're muted, Larry. Larry, you're muted.
recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we're not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. That remained the main problem of alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in the body. Pages 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
And thank you, Larry. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central with the Gerbil Fellowship page where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. And we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time.
I don't see anybody.
Me neither. Okay. And then the recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. All right. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? No? Okay. If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in chat. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in chat. Thank you, and see you next week. Sorry guys, I just can't do that without the screen.
Sorry.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for your service. Larry, thank you for your service. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 5. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 6. Please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hi, I'm Nicole, alcoholic addict, and I'm your traditionalist. And tonight we're discussing Tradition 6. So, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. Problems of money, prosperity, and authority may easily divert us from our primary spiritual aim. We think, therefore, that any considerable property of genuine use to AA should be separately incorporated and managed, thus dividing the material from the spiritual. An AA group, as such, should never go into business. Secondary aids to AA, such as clubs or hospitals, which require much property or administration, ought to be incorporated into and so set apart that, if necessary, they can be freely discarded by the groups. Hence, such facilities ought not to use the AA name. Their management should be the sole responsibility of those who financially support them. For clubs, AA managers are usually preferred, but hospitals as well as other places of recuperation ought to be well outside AA and medically supervised. While an AA group may cooperate with anyone, such cooperation ought never to go as far as affiliation or endorsement, actual or implied. An AA group can bind itself to no one. So, yes, we have Tradition 6 because nothing should distract us from helping a suffering alcoholic. When AA first started, some of them wanted to start various projects such as hospitals, rehabs, and other projects, when in turn would have caused chaos and been trying to do too many things at once, which would have distracted us from our primary purpose of helping another alcoholic. And, it just would have been a mess if we got involved with many different things at the same time, and we would have been distracted, right? And too many kind of bosses in the kitchen, and hold on, I'm gonna do this. Thereupon we tried AA hospitals. They all bogged down because you cannot put an AA group into business. Too many busybody cooks spoil the broth. AA groups have their fling at education, and when they began to publicly look up the merits of this or that brand, people became confused. Did AA fix drunks, or was it an educational project? Was AA spiritual, or was it medical? Was it a reform movement or consternation? We saw ourselves getting married to all kinds of enterprises, some good and some not so good. So basically, it would really be confusing, and it would just be kind of, too many projects at once, and it would defer us from our primary purpose of one alcoholic helping another alcoholic in sobriety, and so that is why this tradition is in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Excellent job over the last 3 weeks. And next week we will be inviting a new traditionalist in. Right at the moment, it is a mystery, so more shall be revealed. And now it's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What follows are some of the things that we hear, along with what the Big Book actually has to say on the subject. One of those things that we hear is that there are no musts in the book, and Art is going to tell us what it has to say on page 143 in the second paragraph. Welcome, Art.
He should understand that he must undergo a change of heart.
Thank you, Art. And as we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
Whoops. Put the wrong book away. Sorry about that. Uno momento, please. Boy, talk about being out of sorts. In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page 19, which will be read tonight by Kenny, followed by our study portion, which will be read by Lynn.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back where Lynn started tonight's study portion. And the answers will be simply one-sentence answers, split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through, then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we have completed the study, we will open up for comment, questions, observations based on what was just read. If you have a spiritual experience with this information and you are free to share, please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, we'll let you know one way or another. Maybe a really cool looking little dog will pop his head up in the screen.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example with a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of our co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And before we get started, let's take a quick look at how we got here. We didn't just wake up today and say, let's read page 19. This is a 94-week study, and it started in January of 2020. And we start on the title page where we read our first promise, how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And we read all the way through the preface, the forewords, the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, and each and every chapter and line and paragraph, all the way through the end of A Vision for You on page 164. And then throughout that part of the study, we also visit the spiritual experience 3 different times. Then we also read Dr. Bob's Nightmare and spend 2 weeks on the traditions. And then the final week, we also have dedicated just for Appendix 2, the spiritual experience, so that we can really focus on what that means to us. And as we read and as we study, we do everything line by line and with the question and answer format so that we can get that new and deeper understanding. And, each time we go through the study, I learn different stuff. So the more we read it, the more we learn. Thanks.
Thank you. And if we can get at least 4 hands raised, maybe 5 to be question answers. The answers will come directly out of the book from what we studied tonight. You don't have the questions. It's not necessary for you to look for them because you won't be able to find them. But we will most certainly give you the question, and the answers will come line by line right out of the book. So your appreciation would be greatly, participation would be greatly appreciated. And Kenny, go ahead and come on in with the recap, sir.
Okay. None of us make the sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. We feel the elimination of our drinking is but the beginning. A much more important demonstration of our principles lie before us in our respective homes occupations, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. If we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result, but the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. Many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given to us? We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to task our combined experience and knowledge. This should be suggested to suggested a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. The necessity there will of necessity there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. Nothing would please us much as to write a book which contains no bias for contention or argument. We shall do our utmost to achieve that idea. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinion or their opinions or attitude or which makes us more useful to others. Our very lives of ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. You may already have asked yourself, why is it that all of us become so ill from drinking? Doubtless you're curious how, to discover how and why, in the face of expert opinion to the contrary, we have recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. If you are alcoholic and want to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? The purpose of this book is to answer such questions specifically. We shall tell you what we have done. Before going into detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. How many times people have said to us, I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? That fellow can't handle liquor. Why don't you try beer and some wine? Lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. She's such a sweet girl. I should think he'd stop for her sake. The doctor told him that if he ever drank again, it would kill him. But there he is, all lit up again. None of these are common. Now these are commonplace observations on drinking, which we hear all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. It's sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warnings of a doctor become operative. This man could also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome and may even need medical attention. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker. But at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose control of his liquor consumption. Once he starts to drink, here, once he starts to drink, here's a fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He's a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world. Let him drink for a day, and he frankly becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when there's some important decision that must be made or engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible, well balanced concerning everything except liquor. But in that respect, he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities, skills, and aptitude, and has a promising career ahead of him. He uses his gift to build up a bright future for his family and himself. Then he pulls destruction down on his head by a senseless series of sprees. He is the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock around. Yet, early next morning, he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over the house to be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him and throw it down a waste pipe. As matters grows worse, he begins to use a combination of high-power sedatives and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can work. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative so which to taper off. Then he begins to appear in hospitals and sanitariums. Thank you for letting me read.
Thank you, Kenny. And before Lynn comes in, I saw 3 hands up. I had Molly, Lynn, and Art. We could use one more. Thank you, Pinky. And Lynn, come on in with this week's reading.
Good evening. Starting with, this is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary, but this description should identify him roughly. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it that it takes one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and the willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? Perhaps there never will be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, he may do so for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. If you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are He will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic drinking bout creates. They sound like philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Once in a while, he may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled block. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count. How true this is, you realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will. The tragic truth is that if man be real alcoholic, the happy day may never arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of the choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and the humiliation of every week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time, so here's how." Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, "For God's sake, how did I ever get started again?" Only to have the thought supplanted by, "Well, I'll stop at the sixth drink," or "What's the use anyhow?" When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history, but for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be of service.
And thank you, Kenny, and everybody else who has been of service this evening. So our batting order tonight for the questions will be starting with Lynn, then Art, and Pinky, and William. And I will ask the questions out of our script. The answers will be each sentence line by line coming directly out of the book, the portion that Lynn just read, and Jamie will be coming in with some comments throughout. So Lynn, you get our first question. Is the foregoing a complete picture of the real alcoholic?
This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary.
Thank you. And Art, does it come close? Oh, and you are muted.
Okay, here we go again. But this description should identify him roughly.
Thank you. And if thousands of drunken experiences have ended in a debacle, what are the questions? And read the entire paragraph, please.
Why does he believe or behave like this? With hundreds of experiences and have known him that one drink means another debacle, with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters?
Thank you. And William, do we have some understanding of this today? And you have 3 sentences, please.
Perhaps there never will be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic react differently from normal people. We are not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him.
Thank you. And Lynn, back to you. Can we answer the riddle? There you go.
Can we answer the riddle? Okay. Now with all that, I lost my place. I'm trying to unmute. Sorry.
We cannot.
Perhaps there never will be. No.
Yes.
We cannot answer the riddle. We cannot.
There you go. Thank you. And Art, of what are we certain?
We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men.
Thank you. And Pinky, a 3-part question. Of what are we equally positive? Does the ingestion of alcohol affect both the body and the mind? And what is the result of taking any alcohol into the body of an alcoholic?
We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop.
Thank you. And William, what makes the preceding statement exceedingly clear?
The experience of any alcoholic would be abundantly confirmed this.
And here's where the comment starts. From this point on in this book, we will be dealing with the problem of the real chronic alcoholic, the problem of the mind, the inevitability of the alcoholic to, the inability of the alcoholic to manage the decision to not start drinking again based on self-knowledge, self-will, or the alcoholic's willpower. We will be told of the need for a spiritual experience or awakening to survive alcoholism, the reason the alcoholic must gain access to a higher power.
Thank you, Jamie. And Lynn, what sets the terrible cycle in motion?
These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting this terrible cycle in motion.
Thank you. And Art, where does the real problem of the real alcoholic rest?
Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body.
Is the real physical allergy, is the real problem physical allergy or mental insanity?
And Pinky, if you ask an alcoholic why he drinks, can he give you an honest answer? 2 sentences, please.
If you ask him why he started on that last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates.
Thank you. And William, what analogy do the authors give us?
make sense of the light on how that alcoholic. Often the men who have a headache, they sound like the philosophy of the man who has a headache, beat himself over the head with a hammer so that he cannot feel the ache.
You. And Lynn, if you point this out to him, what will his reaction be?
If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk.
Thank you. And Art, does the alcoholic ever tell the truth?
Once in a while, he may tell the truth.
Thank you. And Pinky, what is the truth?
And the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have.
Thank you. William, even with plausible excuses, do they know the answer?
Some drunkards have excuses which they are satisfied part of the time.
Thank you. And Lynn, what is the real truth?
But in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it.
Thank you. Art, once they have crossed the line, what is their mental state?
Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffling lot, or baffled lot.
And Pinky, what is the obsession of every alcoholic?
There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game.
Thank you. William, do they normally suspect the truth?
They will beat. Someday they will beat the game.
Next one. They often. But they often suspect.
Oh, I lost it. I catch it. Oh, they often suspect they are down for the count.
Thank you. Lynn, do most folks realize this?
How true this is, few realize.
Thank you. Art, what do family members and friends hope?
In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will.
Thank you. Pinky, what is the tragic truth?
The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive.
And William, what has the alcoholic lost?
He has lost all control.
You. Lynn, what happens at a certain point in the alcoholic's drinking career?
At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail.
Thank you. And Art, what is the tragic situation?
This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected.
Thank you. And Pinky, what is it that the alcoholic has lost?
The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice and drink.
Do you believe you have the power to control your drinking once you have started? Do you believe you have the power to stop drinking? Have you lost the power of choice as to how much you drink? And more importantly, have you lost the power to choose whether or not you will drink? Is your life unmanageable when it comes to drinking?
William, what happens to our willpower?
Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. How well do I know?
Thank you. Lynn, how long can we rely on our minds to keep fresh the misery of our last drunk?
We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness in sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago.
Thank you. How long were you able to stay stopped before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous for help? Why would we ask a newcomer to go to 90 meetings in 90 days if they have a real desire to stop drinking? And could it be that the alcoholic has done so much damage to our mind and bodies that it will take time in order for the damage to heal? We have a far better chance to recover when we practice the spiritual solution.
Thank you. And Art, as a result of this phenomenon, what are we without?
We are without defense against the first drink.
If we are without defense against the first drink on our own, what then must be our destiny? Without the aid of a power greater than ourselves, step 2, we are led to the gates of insanity or death, step 1.
Thank you. And Pinky, with no more than a glass of beer, what does not enter our mind?
The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us.
Thank you. William, if there is a slight suspicion, what does the mind do?
If these thoughts occur, they are haste and are readily supplemented with the old threat ideal that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people.
And Lynn, what analogy do they give us here regarding the loss of power of choice?
There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove.
Thank you. Art, what may the alcoholic say to himself?
The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time, so here's how."
Thank you. And Pinky, do alcoholics always give some thought to taking a drink?
Or perhaps he doesn't think at all.
William, hard question. Do some alcoholics start drinking without realizing what they are doing? And when they realize they were drinking, what thought or thoughts do they have? And please read the rest of the paragraph.
For me,
Starting at how often?
how often are some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way? And after the third or fourth pour pound on the bar and saying to ourselves, "For God's sake, how did I ever get started again?" Only to have that thought supplemented by, "Well, I will start with this 6th drink, or what's the use anyhow?"
Have you ever found yourself drinking and could not remember how you started?
And Lynn, a two-part question. When an alcoholic reaches this stage of alcoholism, where do they find themselves? And if not locked up, what will happen to them?
When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, he may die or go permanently insane.
Thank you.
Keep going.
No,
Oh,
I'm just slow on the uptake today.
okay.
Detoxing Christmas. Again, emphasizing the idea of a need for a power greater than ourselves, step 2.
And Art, is this fact or fiction?
These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history.
Thank you. Pinky, what has prevented many such demonstrations?
But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations.
Thank you. And William, the last question, what are so many unable to do?
So many want to stop, but cannot.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for reading and being of service. We're now open the floor for sharing. You have experience with the portion of the book that we've just read. Please feel free to come on in and share. A friendly reminder as we share, the absence of profanity offends no one. We're going to open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. And if you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are certainly free to share. So who is going to jump in first?
The dental chair.
Yes. Hi, William.
My name is William Michael Harley. When I read this and think about my behavior before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was clueless. And practically all that stuff that they was talking about, I did it, and I stepping in, thought I had willpower. I came from a hard place in life, and I was able to accumulate some things in life, and I thought it was because of my willpower. So when they was told me that I remember going away to the rehab, and I tell the counselor, I said, I got willpower, I could do this. And she finally told me, she said, William, she gave me a letter, told me, said, William, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you ever pick up a drink, just keep coming. So I went away. I came home and I made a couple meetings, and I figured this program out right away. All that noise, because there's a disease center in your mind. When I went into the room, the first tradition was working for me. So I figured, okay, when that started going off in my head, I'll go to AA. But a little idea from 1989 to 1992, I was like a revolving door. And in that letter, when I opened up that letter, she just put one sentence in there: go to AA with two colons, semicolons and stuff. Go to AA, and I kept coming and stuff. So I remember going into the bar. So I'm gonna drink 2 drinks or a couple of drinks. I'm gonna be out at a certain time. And when that time came, I'll be getting to stretch the time back, and I was clueless about what was going on, And I went in search of denial when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and all the information, because I'm a practical person. I'm not one of those intellectual persons. I got to go through stuff to get it, So whenever I would get the information, I hear all the information in the meetings and stuff, and I would go out and I'll pick up that drink and I see it with that. They give me the first drink and get you drunk, and then I began to see that I couldn't stop drinking. I wanted more and more and more. So definitely, I had learned how to tap into this, to that God of my understanding. And definitely part it was talking about the emotion part of it. And I often say that the emotion part of it, we got different. On the outside, we all look the same. But an emotion damage that's been done by alcoholism, we all recover at our own pace, and that's I do anyway, and what helped me was reading the big book and understanding what was going on and stuff, through these classroom style meetings and stuff, And somewhere in the big book, Bill used a lot of metaphor, a lot of similes and stuff like that to drive home his point, And in there, and I know we will come to this sooner or later, and I'm going to mark it down in the book. God say, put on the shoe that fits your feet, And I thought about that. I said, I wear a 10 and a half. What I look like with wearing a size 10 on my feet, I be hollering all the way downtown and back, you know what I mean? So definitely, I belong to, and life ain't good every society. Put down that drink and start working on me, and the healing process began. And it's not over. It's not over. I continue to come and continue to go. And my recovery was a slow process. But I come in and do whatever I can do to help pass this on for the next 6 months of an alcoholic, So for that, I will be so grateful, man. When we read this, just about behavior when I was drinking is all right there for me to see. And how do they know so much like that? How do they know? They know me better than I did myself. So I appreciate Bill and Bob for putting all this stuff down and they'll first one on the moon so that we could come in. If I don't believe what you say, I can read it in the book. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Hi, Kenny.
You're muted,
Unmute.
Kenny.
I'm mute. to share on part of that I identify with the fact that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent, and we are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory and suffering of humiliation, or even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink, and that's me. I would go out, drink, and drug, and run myself ragged, and I might go a day or 2 days, and then the next couple of days I'm in the bed trying to get myself back together. And then when I get myself back together and I get on my feet and I say I'm not going to do it again, and I might go a week, I might go 2 weeks, I might even go 3, but something will lead me right back to it, and I won't think about how bad off I was. And once I get that first one, they said like almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts do occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the whole dreadful idea of we can handle ourselves like other people. Uh, and sometimes, you know, I would even say, "Ah, heck with it anyway." It comes along with the territory. I'm going to do this, and it got real painful and ugly. I lost weight, became homeless at one point in my life, and I still found myself drinking and drugging. And I couldn't stop until I had to go away to stop. And then when I came back, I had to join the outpatient and make meetings every day. The outpatient was cool, but I knew I had to make meetings every day. And I've been in recovery before, and I knew I had to get a sponsor again. And I knew I had to get into step work. And 90 days, in 90 days, they said you make 90 meetings in 90 days because just practicing that would give you something to do and help break that habit. And now, I know that it's a higher power that helps me in them unguarded moments. So when I start my day off with a prayer, and I try to meditate for a few moments. I try to read the daily reflection, and I got a group of men that text me every morning, and that helps keep me centered. And through the day, I touch base with my higher power, and at night, because I know that it can come at me any way. It came at me with money, with women, with anger. It can come at me any way, and I come to the conclusion that of myself, I never really knew how to live, and now at my age, I'm learning how to live. My life is opening back up. Things that I've lost, like in relationships, like my oldest son, me and him are forming a relationship again, and I have a chance to get my youngest son back in my life. And maybe one day my daughter will come back in. I don't know. All things are possible if I stay sober. And if none of that even occurred, I was happy, and am happy because I have a purpose. And that's all I share. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Come on in, Jamie.
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic, and welcome to all those of you who are joining us for the first time. And everybody else, welcome back. We are grateful to have you here. I love this chapter. And here's what I have to remember. That this chapter, there is a solution, is still all a part of step 1 in my life. It is still all part of learning how to diagnose myself as an alcoholic and what type of alcoholic I am. From the doctor's opinion to page 43, 51 pages in all, is all about the diagnosis of step 1. It's pretty amazing that there's 51 pages dedicated to the first step. I think they're trying to drive home to us the idea and the importance and the exact nature of our disease. And while maybe we haven't done all of these things, I bet if we're honest with ourselves, I know I certainly had to get honest with myself. What happened was, while maybe not every box checked, about 78% of them checked, and that's close enough to 100%. And what I learned how to do was not look for that 22% that didn't check the box. In the doctor's opinion, it tells us that, it can be much, the description of the alcoholic can be much outside of our scope, right? And then it gives us five types. But it says all of these and many more. So the truth is we don't really know how many types there are in the world there are. They're just giving us a generalization so that we can help look at ourselves. So, in tonight's study, I love this part. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, what makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. I have believed, and I have always believed. There's people that will try and convince me otherwise. I'm not the one who needs convincing. We can convince ourselves through our own alcoholism. Many people try and tell me that a thimbleful is not a slip. But I believe that a thimbleful is a slip, if it's intentional. It's one thing if I go to a holiday dinner at somebody's house and they didn't tell me that they made something with wine in it, and I accidentally eat it and I can taste the wine, so I push it away. But it's a whole nother thing if I have somehow taken a premeditated action of taking a drink. And I love how it goes on to say there that he can no more tell you why, has the answer to why he picked up the first drink than we do. So if I pick up that first drink, and I somewhere along the line, I had to make a conscious decision to pick up the first drink. It was emotional. She didn't do it my way. It talks about it will give you any one of 100 alibis. Alibis are just alibis. Alibis are just excuses. Maybe I can find that through putting a little pen to paper. Because when I'm just giving excuses or alibis, am I really just not putting the blame on others rather than taking the responsibility for myself? Maybe the simple truth is, I just wanted a drink. The mental obsession, if I've been sober for a while, the mental obsession preceding the first drink. Because it's impossible for the phenomenon of craving to be in effect if I haven't been drinking. So the mental obsession, everybody's having that pretty bottle of wine underneath the Christmas tree. You know, I used to have that fantasy of being on the Christmas commercial, you know, and the guy and the gal having the glass of wine. I never had a Christmas like that in my drinking. They were drunken, knocking the Christmas tree over kind of Christmases. And yet, I just experienced the best Christmas of my life ever. So, if I pick up a drink, I have to look for the reason why. And maybe it's because I'm still on the fence about whether or not I am an alcoholic. Maybe I'm still stuck in step one and I am not convinced. Because once I get to page 43, which we'll be at in a couple of more weeks, and I am 100% convinced that I'm an alcoholic and my life is unmanageable as a result of it, it's time for me to get my butt off the fence and move on with the rest of the program. Because the rest of the program, and it mentions spiritual solution in here tonight, this rest of the program, which gives us that spiritual solution and the development of it in my life, is what is going to save me from a disease that is trying to kill me. And the sad thing is I'm trying to kill me with my own hand, my own mind, making the decision, I need a drink. I'm the one that has to. The bottle of booze does not somehow mysteriously end up on my table. I'm the one that has to take the action and the effort to get it. You know, and the truth is, when it comes to looking at why I take the first drink, there again, it's probably some mental obsession that's unsettled in my mind. Or I'm just not being happy sober. Maybe I'm not happy sober because I'm not really practicing the rest of the program. There again could be any one of 100 reasons, but maybe the simplest thing for me to do is just follow the solution. And if through the solution I just might find some happiness. And somebody raise their hands, because I'm shutting up. Thanks.
Hey Larry, I saw you unmute. Come on in.
Hey, I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. You know, I look back and I'm not sure. I know when I first started drinking, it was in college, and I drank till I blacked out. I mean, my very first drink, Bacardi 151. I drank, I don't know how much of the bottle. I drank, all I do know is I drank till I blacked out, passed out. I woke up around the porcelain toilet, vomit everywhere, ready to party the next night. I mean, you know, I had found something. I remember feeling good. But the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere. For a long time during that party, it didn't end up so good, but I know that I felt good, and I remember that burn going down my throat and into my stomach. So I feel like I became at least a hard drinker that night. I say that because I drank like that through college until I flunked out of college. And when I flunked out of college, I went home back here to Tennessee, and I made plans to get married. And of course, I knew I had to straighten up because she was a preacher's daughter. And so I had to mend my ways, and I couldn't drink and take LSD and do everything that I was doing in college. So I immediately I stopped drinking. I stopped, taking the drugs, and I started going to church and doing that, and I stopped. And for 7 years I stopped. But something happened at about the 7 year mark, and I started getting crazy thoughts in my brain, like, wouldn't it be good to take a drink? And wouldn't it taste good? I don't know how the thoughts were coming, but about that 7 year mark, I found a way I was away from home. I was at a conference, and I went on a binge, and I took a drink. And from that time on, it was like an every 2 or 3 months binge for the rest of the time that I was married. It was the most miserable time of my life, because I was pastoring in church, and I was drinking, and they didn't believe it, believe me. And I was just miserable. I knew I shouldn't be doing it, but every 2 or 3 months there was an urge that I just could not shake, and it was just like clockwork. And finally something happened, and she left, and we got divorced, or at least she left, and for 4 years I tried to work it out, but I quit the church, I quit the ministry, and at that point I drank a lot. I started drinking more, and she knew I drank then because she drank too. We both drank. And then we divorced, and I moved to Las Vegas, and I drank every day. Drinking became a lifestyle. Drugging and drinking and everything. Some point, I lost complete control. I don't know. I don't know when I became an alcoholic. I don't know if I became an alcoholic in college or somewhere afterwards. I don't know why the thoughts came to my mind after the 7 year mark. I don't know what happened. All I do know is when it got out of control, I no longer had a choice. I drank a lot. I drank too much. It was every day. It was all the time. And it wasn't just drinking. It was drugs. It was gambling. I was an obsessive person in every area of my life. Now, when I got into the program and I stopped drinking, about the 5 year mark, or maybe 6 year mark, I got a resentment, and I stopped going to meetings, and I didn't drink, but I did go into a deep depression. And I was a sober, miserable, old son of a bee. And I I sat around being hateful and being critical, and I finally ended up after 2 years staying in my apartment all alone in the dark, watching TV, collecting knives and watches, and that was about all my whole life. That was it. Not talking to people, being a hermit, basically. I looked and I got a phone call from my kids because I had made plans to get a bottle of alcohol, drink, and kill myself because I was the most miserable thing. And I got back into AA because my kids came and got me right before all that took place and brought me back to Dayton. And I know that was God. I do know it was God because they hadn't talked to me in about 3 years. And why they called that night, I don't know, but they did. And I found out that night that alcohol wasn't my problem. I was my problem, and I had to then work on myself. I was sober in the fact that I wasn't drinking, but I wasn't doing the program like I should have done the program at the 5-year mark. And when I started working on me and doing the program like I needed to do the program, then I saw what the program could really do. And alcohol was just the symptom of the problem, which was alcohol, which was alcoholism. And alcoholism is much more than just drinking. And I found a new life and a new way of living that has woke me up and has given me a new lease on life. And today, I can say I'm happy, joyous, and free. Not just because I quit drinking, but because I do these steps, and because I employ them in my life every day, and because they are a part of my life. And if you do this, it does work. It does make you whole and joyous and free from alcoholism, which is not just not drinking. I'm Larry, and I am an alcoholic.
Thank you, Larry. Hi, Lynn.
Hi there. I just wanted to claim my seat. My name is Lynn. I'm an alcoholic. I'm up here in New England, and I've been sober for about 2 years. Not quite, but just roughly. But everybody's story is different. You know, my dad was an alcoholic. I said I would never be an alcoholic. But I enjoyed drinking for a good period of time, and I'll get into it more probably in another share, but I just wanted to let you know that my drinking got to the point where it became a necessity health-wise, because if I started to cut back on my drinking or eliminate my drinking, I found that I couldn't live without it, and I would go maybe seriously 96 hours of pure hell before I'd start to feel a little better. And but then if another drink came into play, then it became continuous. And in the literature, it did say, when it talked about the first drink I don't think is so much the problem. It's after the first drink, it's the second drink where you can't stop. And I'm just so thankful that I'm sober today, and I am thankful every day that I'm sober. But again, everybody's story is different, and I just knew that it was something that I couldn't live without. I did go to a rehab facility, a program that I was in for 90 days, and they never really talked about Alcoholics Anonymous. It was really kind of odd. They said maybe you should. This was in the middle of COVID when there weren't any in-person meetings, so the only meetings available to me would have been Zoom, and given the fact that I was new to sobriety and kind of thrown into a program that I wasn't familiar with, I didn't realize at that time that I was an alcoholic. I was in that program to learn how to control my drinking, to learn how to drink responsibly, to have only one glass of wine, that kind of thing, not realizing that that wasn't my problem at all. It just wasn't going to work unless I completely abstained, completely gave up, but more importantly, took on the program and found a spiritual reason for being here and doing service and things of that nature. Practicing the steps, practicing these principles in all our affairs, everything that all the prayers and literature say. But the program really works, it really does, and it's great to give back to get back, which was most freely given to me. And we'll talk about all that in future months going through the book. But I just wanted to say hello and thank you for being an honorary pickle in the pickle group. I've taken the name as Organic Pickle because I'm a master gardener and I do a lot of gardening, so therefore that's my pickle name. And have a great night, guys. I'll be around for the rest of the meeting, but I know we're wrapping it up. Okay, thanks.
Always good to see you, Lynn. Thank you. Hi, Xavier.
Hey, good evening, family. Xavier Alcoholic. All right, really quickly, I'm so grateful to get through Christmas without drinking. Like, there were some stresses always, a lot of family stuff, and I was like in Costco. I had to get outside, and there was this meeting on step 10 they were listening to, and I got on and just like doing a quick 10 step, asking the 4 questions, basically asking God to remove, at that point, the resentment I had, asking if I needed to make any amends, telling another human being, and then going to help somebody else. And I'm just grateful for the, tools in my tool chest for this program. It's nice to, especially when things are weird, just quickly call my sponsor and tell him myself my insanity. Go to meetings, do prayers throughout the day, asking God to remove this insanity. And I think when the stress was really common, especially for me in the holidays, and then of course detoxing from work, like this week, my wife is forcing me to work up. It's cool, and I've had so many holidays where I've been drunk the whole time. It's been hell on earth. Now I get to get on baby duty. So that's all I got. Just want to check in. Very, very grateful that that obsession, if it didn't take over, I was able to stay sober one day at a time. So that's all I got. I'll pass.
Thanks, Xavier.
Thanks, Xavier.
I'm going to jump in real quick before we close out. I love where it talks about if hundreds of experiences have shown him one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering. Why is it he takes that one drink? And I would ask myself that. Why am I doing this again? How did I get here again? And I never had an answer. I had lots of excuses. I had no reasons, and I didn't know what the truth was. But the truth is, I could remember how it made me feel, but I couldn't remember what it was doing to me. And I was just drinking so that I could escape. And, I love where it talks about the philosophy of having a headache, beating yourself on the head with a hammer so you can't feel the headache. And, I've been there. And as we were reading that tonight, it reminded me of my roommate in college talking about the nurse at summer camp, pretty much always threatening the kids. If they went with a headache, she would say, I'm going to stomp on your foot, then you're going to forget that your head hurts. It's like, I wonder if she knew about this philosophy here. But so often I would pick up that drink, and the only reason that I could convince myself I was doing it was because I knew what it was going to do for me. I didn't remember what it did to me. And whatever excuse I was telling myself on why I was picking up that drink, it was a lie, because I didn't want to look at the truth. I didn't want to look at the truth that I couldn't not pick up that drink. And I just lived in those lies of, what am I doing? Didn't matter what I was doing, whatever I told myself, whatever that lie was. But, once I lost that power of choice, it wasn't every day, but I knew that day was going to come again where I was going to drink again. And I could not remember that suffering, the humiliation, that came from taking that drink. All I knew was the instant gratification it was going to give me. It was going to shut off the pain. It was going to shut off the fear. It was going to shut off the anxiety and tune me out of whatever is going on in life. And I could never remember what the other suffering afterwards was going to be, and the cravings and everything else. And, I'll stop with the first drink, the second drink, the fifth drink, the sixth drink. What the heck? I'm just going to have it all. Because at that point, once I got to that point of I'm just going to drink it all, it doesn't matter why I'm doing it, I knew I was at that point of no return. And I wasn't going to be able to stop until there wasn't any more left. And I want to thank everybody for coming and being here with us. Jamie, do you want to take us out?
I do. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight. And from page 164 of our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for being here tonight. And we will close out in our usual fashion, since we are not in the same room or even in the same time zone where we can put our hands together around the table. We hold our hands up in the screen, and that's our way of holding hands here on Zoom for us. And we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms, especially those who may die tonight because they haven't found their way to us. Or perhaps they found, but they weren't ready and they didn't want what we had yet. And we'll follow that with the Lord's Prayer. So here's your moment. Thank you. Who brings us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the recorder.
What a great meeting.
Good night.
Everybody for sharing. Good night. Have a great
We're still gonna hang out for a bit.
You don't see that? I'll kill Joe on that.